You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans! Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am the Jacob Valk, and you're not. You know what I'm going to start with. If you know anything about me, you know that I'm a diehard Yankees fan. So them clawing their way back into the playoffs for the first time since May 30th is where I have to start. This is an unbelievable turnaround. Think back to the All-Star break. The Yankees had just blown that game to the Astros. Chad Green implodes. Jose Altuve kills him again. The Yankees are just 3 games over 500. They're 8 games out of first place in the AL East. They're 4.5 games behind the Athletics for the second wildcard spot. To make matters worse, everyone under the sun gets COVID. The Yankees are trotting out AAA lineups against Boston. I said on the Yankees shows that this isn't their year. It makes no sense to mortgage the future for a lost season. Blow things up. Hell, after the Field of Dreams game, I called for the Yankees to fire Boone. Somehow, some way, the Yankees have fought tooth and nail to get themselves back in the playoffs. At this very moment, they are 1,000th of a point up on the Red Sox. They are actually tied with the Athletics for the first wildcard spot. What was the last great season that the Yankees had? 2017, right? No one expects them to make the playoffs, but the young guns get them there. They get within 1 win of their 41st pennant, only to lose to the Astros. Keep in mind, though, the Astros were stealing signs. If they weren't doing that, God only knows what would have happened. This Yankees team has a very big similarity with that team. In 2017, they were the Cardiac Kids in the wild card game. The Yankees fell behind 3-0 in the first inning to the Minnesota Twins. Luis Severino only pitches a third of an inning. The bullpen was called upon to get 26 outs. The Yankees won that game 8-4. Thank you, Didi Gregorius. In the ALDS, the Yankees fell behind 2-0. They lost a heartbreaking 13-inning game in Cleveland. In Game 2, they come back and win that series. Thank you, Greg Bird. Even against the Astros, Game 4, when they were down 4-0 after 6.5 innings, they fight back. They get to McCullers, they get to Davinsky, they get to Musgrove, they get to Giles. He ends up punching himself in the face. The Yankees win that game 6-4. They were the cardiac kids. This Yankees team is very similar to that team in that sense. They win close games. It may not be good for the blood pressure, but you know what? It doesn't really matter as long as you're winning. The Yankees are 10-3 in their last 13 games. In those 10 wins, their biggest margin of victory was 3 runs. Even their losses have been close. Their biggest quote-unquote blowout loss was the day before August 10th, when they lost 8-4. Like I said, it's not good for the blood pressure, but you know what? It doesn't matter. As long as they win, that's all I care about. I mean, go back to the first game of the doubleheader. In the top of the 5th, Christian Vasquez gives the Red Sox the lead. It's 3-2 Boston. Entering the bottom of the 5th, the Yankees got to the Red Sox bullpen. After striking out LeMahieu, Garrett Whitlock gives up back-to-back walks to Gardner and Judge. Alex Cora, with the quick hook, went to Josh Taylor. Taylor walked Joey Gallo, then gave up a 2 RBI single to Luke Voigt and an RBI single to Giancarlo Stanton. Before you knew it, the Yankees were up 5-3. Jonathan Loaisiga was called upon to get a 6-out save. He got through the 6th inning, no problem. The 7th inning, though, he gave up 3 straight singles. So he had bases loaded, nobody out. First batter up in that spot is Travis Shaw. He flies out to Joey Gallo in left field. The Red Sox didn't send Kyle Schwarber from third base. You know why? Because Joey Gallo has a cannon for an arm. Schwarber would have been thrown out by a mile. It's interesting to think about what would have happened if Jarren Duran was at third base instead of Schwarber. But regardless, it's bases loaded, 1 man out for Kike Hernandez. Loaisiga falls behind 3-0. He throws 3 straight strikes. So now it's bases loaded, 2 men out for Hunter Renfroe. Renfroe strikes out on 4 pitches. Loaisiga didn't throw a single ball. Again, not good for the blood pressure, but I don't care how you win. I just care if you win. Then in the night game, Luis Gil continues his greatness. The anti-Chase Wright. If you saw my tweet and didn't get it, let me tell you about Chase Wright. Chase Wright pitched in 3 games in 2007. His first start was on April 17th. It was against the Cleveland Indians. Wright pitched 5 innings, gave up 3 runs. The Yankees won 10-3. His next start was against the Red Sox on April 22nd. Wright only pitched 3 innings, gave up 4 runs. The Yankees lost 7-6. Wright was never heard from again. He pitched 2 innings in the last game of the season against the Baltimore Orioles. After that, he never pitched in the majors again. It was because of that start against the Red Sox, though. This guy looked really good against the Indians. Fell apart against the Red Sox. Never really recovered from that. So that's running in the back of my mind against Heel. Wait a minute. Yes, this guy has been great against the Orioles and Mariners, but what's he going to do against the Red Sox? All he does is pitch 4 2/3 innings of shutout baseball. Wandy Peralta gets out of a bases-loaded jam that Heel found himself in. That was the right decision by Boone to bring in Peralta to pitch to the lefty Devers. Peralta got through the 6th, sorta kinda unscathed. He had runners on the corners, 2 men out. Bobby Dahlbeck hit a line drive right back to Peralta. It ended up hitting Peralta. Peralta has the presence of mind to pick up the ball with his bare hand and just rifle it to first to get Dahlbeck. That was a really impressive play. Then Chad Green comes in to pitch the 7th. He got a 3-out save. By the time the night was over, the Yankees found themselves in the playoffs. It's important to note something, though. That is the bare minimum of what I'd consider acceptable. A winning record but missing the playoffs doesn't work for me. You've got to get into the playoffs. The Yankees are there right now. Granted, a lot can change in the month and a half we have left, but at this very moment, the Yankees are in the playoffs. That's not enough to save Boone, though. He's got to go on a big run in these playoffs. I mean, I'll say this. At this very moment, it's looking really good for the Yankees. Who do you want starting in that 1-game playoff? If you're a Yankees fan, Garrett Cole. Cole's back. He got the win on Monday. Who do you want pitching that game if you're an Athletics fan? Chris Bassett. Bassett's going to have surgery because he took a line drive to the face. Obviously, I wish him nothing but the best. Okay, I want him to recover fully. I'm not wishing ill on him, but let him be out for the next 2 months. In all seriousness, I'm saying this as a Yankees fan. I don't want to go up against Bassett in a 1-game playoff if I don't have to. A while ago, I said that Bassett was my pick to win the AL Cy Young Award. So if I don't have to face him in a 1-game playoff, I'm taking it. I'll take my chances with Frankie Montas, Cole Irvin, Sean Manaea, even the former Yankee, James Kaprielian. If it's not Bassett, I feel pretty good about my chances. Again, I want Bassett to recover fully, just take your time. But I'll say this, without Bassett starting every 5th day, the Athletics are going to fall off a cliff. He's by far and away their best player. I think the Athletics are going to fall out of the playoffs. That means that we could have a Yankees-Red Sox wildcard game. How great would that be, huh? Shades of 1978. Only this time, it would be a one-game playoff. Technically, in 78, it was a regular season game. It's never looked better for the Yankees this year than it does right now. And realize, they're not even at full strength. They've got some pretty darn good players coming back at some point. Aroldis Chapman, Domingo Germán, Clay Holmes, Corey Kluber, Luis Severino. Granted, it's iffy on Severino, but until I hear that he's out for the year, I'm going to include him on this list. They've got Rizzo coming back. They've got Gleyber Torres, Gio Urshela. It is incredible that with this ragtag group, guys who you never thought in your wildest dreams would play this big of a role for the Yankees. Guys like Brett Gardner, Wandy Peralta, and Albert Abreu. The Yankees find themselves in the playoffs. Now, obviously, the Yankees haven't clinched anything. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but it's looking good for the Bombers. And you've got to give Brian Cashman a ton of credit for trading for Gallo and Rizzo. Without them, the Yankees aren't in this spot. It really galvanized the team. It showed the roster that the front office actually believes in them. The Yankees finally have a righty-lefty balance in their lineup, so opposing managers actually have to think about how they want to use their bullpen. Again, let me just say this in my defense. When I said that the Yankees shouldn't make any trades to improve their roster, I didn't think that Cashman would be able to get guys like Gallo and Rizzo by only giving up one top 10 prospect, according to MLB.com. No top 8 prospects, according to MLB.com. If you can get the Italian Stallions for that much of a bargain, yes, you do it. But the Yankees do have an issue on their hands with Rizzo. Luke Voigt is playing great. Yes, overall, he hasn't had a great season, but since coming back from the IL, he's played really well. Overall this year, Voigt's hitting .241 with 6 home runs and 20 RBIs. But 3 of those home runs have been in the past 10 days, as have 9 of his RBIs. The Yankees need to find a way to keep Voigt in the lineup when Rizzo comes back. Truthfully, I want Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield a lot. Enough with the coddling, okay? We've got a month and a half left in the season. I like Stanton, I really do. But in order for the Yankees to put the best lineup out there, Stanton needs to play left every day. I don't care if you put Gallo in center or Judge in center. I don't care if you put Gallo in right or Judge in right. Stanton needs to play left, put Rizzo at first, and put Voigt at DH. All due respect to Gardner. He's doing his thing. In essence, the argument boils down to who would you rather have in the lineup? Brett Gardner or Luke Voigt? I'd rather have Voigt. I mean, you've got Voigt saying outwardly that he deserves playing time. And you know what? He's right. Everything that Luke Voigt said yesterday was right. Saying that he deserves to play just as much as Rizzo. Yeah, I'm with him there 100%. Luke Voigt's a really good player. Yeah, he's been bitten by the injury bug this year. But you know what? You don't hit 22 home runs in 56 games if you don't have talent. And people seem to forget this. In 2019, Voigt hit .263 with 21 home runs and 62 RBIs. He's a really good player. He's proven that he can produce. This guy had some big moments in the Athletics wildcard game in 2018. This guy was a fan favorite not too long ago. I really like Voigt. I'm glad that he stated his case for playing time by using facts and not putting anyone down. That's the right way to do it. If he had said something like, yeah, I'm ticked off at Brian Cashman for trading for Rizzo. He didn't need to do that. I was going to come back and I was going to rake. Boone needs to get me in the lineup every day or else we're going to have a big problem. We'd have a big issue on our hands. But you know what? Voigt handled it perfectly. He said, yeah, Rizzo's here because I was hurt. I get that, but I want to find consistent at-bats. He wants to play. What do you want him to say? Yeah, I'm okay with coming off the bench. I'll be a righty pinch hitter. No, of course he's not going to say that. Great job by Luke Voigt. Really, job well done by him. All in all, the Yankees are in a fantastic spot right now. They've got some good problems on the horizon with finding consistent playing time for really talented players. And with the Chris Bassett injury, I don't see how the Athletics can recover from that. I really think that the Yankees are going to make the playoffs. That's not enough, though. You've got to go on a big run once you get there. Having said that, though, you've got to get there first. For the next month and a half, I'm going to enjoy the possibility of a Yankees-Red Sox one-game playoff. On the opposite end of that spectrum, we have the Nationals and Cubs. Two teams that blew things up at the trade deadline. The Nationals just snapped a 7-game losing streak. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They're 17 games under 500. Meanwhile, you look at the Northsiders. They just snapped a 12-game losing streak. They're 1-9 in their last 10. They're 16 games under 500. it brings up a very interesting question. If you're gonna blow things up, is there a limit? I mean, look at all the players that the Nationals traded. They traded Kyle Schwarber, they traded Brad Hand, Yan Gomes, Josh Harrison, Max Scherzer, Trey Turner, John Lester, and Daniel Hudson. That's just under a third of their major league roster. Meanwhile, you look at the Cubs, they traded Jock Peterson, they traded Andrew Chafin, Anthony Rizzo, Ryan Tepera, Javier Baez, Trevor Williams, Chris Bryant, Craig Kimbrell, and Jake Marisnick. That's more than a third of their roster. Just 5 years ago, this team won the World Series. You look at the Cubs lineup from yesterday and compare it to the Game 7 lineup in the 2016 World Series. It's night and day. Look, from a baseball sense, it makes sense to blow things up to that degree. I didn't think that the Nationals would blow things up, but it was the right decision for them to. They were 8 games under 500. They really didn't have much of a realistic hope of making the playoffs. I just didn't think Mike Rizzo would blow things up. He didn't strike me as that kind of a guy, but he did. And you know what? Now he's getting what he paid for. The Nationals have only won 3 games in August. The Cubs are even worse. They've only won 2 games in August. Yes, you got some good prospects. Yes, you're building for the future. Everyone understands that. But in the meantime, your fans are being forced to watch terrible baseball. There does come a point where you've got to say, wait a minute, how far do we want to go with this? Are we really willing to face the specter of only winning like 10 or 15 games the rest of the way? Is that fair to our fans? I mean, they're not idiots. They know what you're doing, but especially in the case of the Cubs, that's a tortured fan base. That's a fan base that has only won 1 World Series since World War I. From a baseball sense, the fans need to say, yeah, it makes sense. This wasn't our year, so let's build for the future. Let's get excited about the prospects we got. But from a pure fan perspective, these fans have to be really ticked off. And you know what? They have a right to be. No one was going to accuse the Nationals and Cubs of being good. But the Nationals entered trade deadline day 8 games under 500. The Cubs were 4 games under 500. Now the Nationals are 51-68. The Cubs are 53-69. Shouldn't there come a point where you say, you know what, we still want to put a competent product out there? We don't want to blow things up too much. I mean, I understand the argument to that. If you're going to blow things up, why not go all the way? What's the point in keeping a couple good players around if it's just gonna hurt your draft stock. You've still gotta give the fans something to cheer for. Who are Nationals fans cheering for right now? Juan Soto? Okay. Did you see the Instagram post that he made? This guy seems to wanna play in New York. How invested can you get in him if he's openly musing about playing somewhere else? As a Cubs fan, who were you excited about? Rafael Ortega? Come on, this guy's 30 years old. He's not a key building block for you going forward. And even then, no one's going to mistake him for Ernie Banks anytime soon. He's having a good season, but it's not sustainable. In a year or two, he's going to fall off a cliff. Kyle Hendricks? You want to tell me that Cubs fans should get excited about Kyle Hendricks? Okay, that's every fifth day. That's not enough. And also, when you open the floodgates to that degree by trading everyone under the sun, you're going to see speculation on a guy like Hendricks. I can promise you, by the winter meetings, we're going to see at least one article mentioning Kyle Hendricks as a trade chip. Same thing with Rafael Ortega. And would it really stun you if the Nationals traded Soto? I mean, they traded Trey Turner. If they can trade Turner, they can trade Soto. It's not enough to say that one great player can make a baseball team. That's not true. If that was true, the Angels would have won a World Series with Mike Trout. It's not enough to say, hey, look, we have Soto. Hey, we have Hendricks. Hey, look, we have Ortega. You need more than that. At least Orioles fans and Pirates fans, etc., knew what they were getting into this year. It was going to be another rebuilding year. But the Nationals and Cubs had playoff hopes. You've got to realize something. Both of those teams were in the playoffs in the past 2 years. The Nationals won the World Series in 2019. The last legitimate World Series winner. Meanwhile, the Cubs won the NL Central. I feel really bad for their fans. From a baseball sense, you can't begrudge Mike Rizzo for doing what he did. You can't begrudge Jed Hoyer for doing what he did. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a Nationals fan or a Cubs fan, you can't help but feel bad for him. I empathize with you guys, I really do. I'll close this show out with some NFL Valk talk. Specifically on Alex Lewis retiring. Let me give you a brief synopsis of Alex Lewis's career. Here's a guy who really didn't turn heads with the Ravens. He was very expendable to them. One of Joe Douglas's first big moves as Jets GM was to trade for Lewis. He traded a 7th round pick for him. Sure, I have no problem with that. Lewis entered the starting lineup in week 5 of 2019 and really didn't do anything. He had a 56.1 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus. Was a good pass blocker, 68.5 overall grade, but a terrible run blocker, 48.9 overall grade. I thought that the Jets would let Lewis walk, and they'd bring in a better left guard. For some stupid reason, Joe Douglas signed him to a 3-year extension. Now, in all fairness to Douglas, Lewis actually had a good year last year. He had a 66.6 overall grade. His pass blocking took a hit, 55.6 overall grade, but his run blocking greatly improved, 71.5. And you gotta realize something, the Jets were running everything through the left side of that O-line. Yes, that affects Mekhi Becton more than Lewis, but Lewis is there too, so give him credit. Lewis didn't play after Week 11 against the Chargers. We never really got a clear answer on why, but I was perfectly willing to pencil him into the starting lineup. In fact, when the Jets traded up for Elijah Vera Tucker, one of the things that I said was, if you want to improve the offensive line, that's all well and good, but left guard wasn't a position of need. But you know what? If you want to try to move Lewis over to right guard, have him compete with Greg Van Roten, sure. I can't get too upset about that. Well, the competition's over. Van Roten won by default. Here's the Jets' offensive line. Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker, Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten, and Morgan Moses. Lewis's retirement makes the AVT pick even better than it already was. And I understood the logic behind it. You draft a young quarterback, you want to protect him, you fall in love with an offensive line prospect, you know he's not going to fall to you, you have to trade up for him. There's no question that Vera Tucker's ceiling is greater than that of Lewis. The logic made sense. It's not what I would have done, but it'll certainly help for the future. Had I known that Lewis's issues would extend to this year, I never would have said anything bad about the AVT trade. I mean, now that trade makes perfect sense. There was no other way to go. Don't not trade up. Get your guy who can fill a suddenly gaping hole on the O-line. That was the right decision by Douglas. It was the right decision to take AVT. It was the right decision to take Zach Wilson. I would have loved it if the Jets addressed their cornerback need more than they actually did. But, you know what? The Jets' first round now gets an A+. No question about that. Job well done by Douglas. Everything else is a little shaky. Taking Elijah Moore and Michael Carter at the expense of the secondary, I don't think that's going to work out, but we'll see how it goes. It's nothing against those guys. I just know for a fact that the Jets secondary is going to get torched on a weekly basis. So look, obviously, I wish Lewis nothing but the best. I harbor no resentment towards him. He didn't leave the Jets in a bad spot. Their offensive line will be good this coming year. It won't be great, but Becton's a stud. AVT's going to be a stud. McGovern and Van Roten, I'm skeptical of. They're not terrible, but they're certainly the weak links on the O-line. Getting Morgan Moses was fantastic. Lewis's retirement does nothing to change my opinion of the Jets O-line. Until tomorrow, I'm Jacob Valk, and always remember, if you disagree with me, you're wrong.